Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel and welcome to the last video of 2025, which is crazy to say. I really do feel like this year just flew by and I think a lot of people are saying that, but like some years don't. Last year dragged, especially near the end of the year. So this year it was absolutely crazy to see the way that this year went by and just how good of a year it was, and it's really nice to look back and reflect on that. And I hope that most of you, if not all of you, are able to say the same about 2025 and that you all had good things that you've experienced this year. But anyway, I just wanted to sort of take this chance to look back on some of my reads and do the end of year book tag. It's just so much fun looking back and kind of reminding myself of the really good books that I read, maybe some of the not so great books that I read, and you know, just experience all that again, especially because I read so many books throughout the year. So we have the book tag that Emmy created. Everybody sort of seems to have little different variations within theirs. I decided to use hers because she's probably my favorite booktuber, if I'm being honest, and I really liked some of the questions that she had in the end that some other people don't. So we're gonna get right into it. First up, we have my most disappointing read of the year, and that has to be A Theory of Dreaming. This is the second book to A Study in Drowning, which is a really like gothic, dark academia book that I read last year in the fall time and really loved it. Very atmospheric. The writing, I was completely immersed in it and everything, and when she said she was releasing a sequel to it, I was A, very surprised because I didn't think it was setting up to be a sequel per se, and B, very excited because I loved the first one so much. So I expected to love this one just as much. And then I started it and I realized that there was a lot in the first one that was kind of unanswered, but it worked for that. And when we got into this one, there ended up being too many things that needed wrapped up and figured out, and it just didn't feel like any of them actually got figured out because there was so much work to do with those. And then the characters felt like they just took like 100 steps backwards in their character development. It was just very disappointing. I expected to love this and didn't. It probably should have stayed just a standalone, in my opinion. That might be a hot take. Not really sure. Not really sure. Next up, we have my underdog book for the year. And of course, I have to pick an indie book for this because I feel like most of the time the indie books just, unless you get somebody that really gets a hold of them, that has the massive platform to talk about them, they don't get talked about enough. And this is one of those. This is Wings of Ash and Flame. If I could get the platform to like scream this from the rooftops, I would, because this is absolutely incredible. This is the perfect like sort of melding of a Zodiac Academy style book along with a Fourth Wing style book. And it still has its own unique concepts and plot development in here. The way that this book ended, major cliffhanger, like it's crazy. It's crazy. It's about this young woman that gets plucked from a prison and put in this Fae Academy when she has absolutely no powers, and she's expected to compete with other people that have powers. Some of the powers that they have are bonds to magical creatures, multiple different types of magical creatures, and they can talk to them. And so you see all those like elements from the other books that I mentioned sort of coming into play. You get a lot of like some of the bully trope in there a little bit. The betrayal at the end of this was crazy. It just, I think so many people would love that if I could get the right people hooked on it. I really wish I could. Then we have most overhyped book of the year. Yeah, so we're just gonna talk about it. Is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I do not understand why so many people are obsessed with this. I just don't. I don't know why. The characters in here, they're all toxic. None of them felt redeemable to me, and I don't understand why people are like flocking to this the way that they are, which I hate. I hate saying that because I really do like V.E. Schwab's writing, but yeah, I just didn't vibe with that one. Then we have most surprising book of the year, and this is actually going to be the whole trilogy, and that is Red Rising. I've talked about this so many different times on this channel. I did not expect to love this the way that I do because it's a sci-fi, but I feel like it's a perfect blending of sci-fi and maybe some typical fantasy elements that you see. People kind of describe it as Hunger Games set in space. I can kind of see that comparison, at least in the first one, and I don't know, I just didn't expect to vibe with it because of the sci-fi elements, but I was obsessed with this, and the way that this world was developed, the brutality in this book, the way that I just couldn't stop like clenching my teeth and like waiting in anticipation to see what happened next, like completely sucked me in. I cannot wait to read the second arc in the new year. Then we have favorite book couples. Some of them I'm not going to say specific names because I don't want to give anything away, but there is a couple in Red Rising that I was obsessed with, loved them so much. But like I said, don't want to give away any plot line in that. Then I was also obsessed with the couple in Wild Card. I don't remember their names right now, but their meet cute was so adorable. It's probably one of my favorite meet cutes ever. And then just the way that they interact with each other and everything once they get together is just cute and wholesome, and I love them so much. And then the last favorite couple that I have is, we're gonna double check on names because we all know I suck at names, Cliff and Michelle from If It Makes You Happy. This book just made me smile the entire time. Cliff is just such a wholesome character, and the way that he interacts with his two kids just makes you smile. It's one of those things where like guys become more attractive when they're really good with little kids, even if you necessarily don't want little kids, they're just cute. And he was like the epitome of that with his daughters. And then the way that he cares for Michelle and just gives her everything that she never had in a relationship, it just, it made my heart so happy. So yeah, this one for sure was one of my favorite couples. Then we have favorite new author. There are so many that I could say. Pierce Brown, definitely one of them, although I don't even know if he's written anything other than the Red Rising series. I'm gonna have to look into that, but if he ever does, I'm 100% going to read some of those. We have Rachel Gillig, who wrote the One Dark Window duology and The Night and the Moth. Absolutely obsessed with her writing. I read the first duology at the beginning of the year, and I actually ended the year with The Night and the Moth in December. Really obsessed with her writing, very gothic, atmospheric, and really unique plot lines. And just to run through the others really quick, we have Demi Perry. She wrote Shield of Sparrows, and she has a bunch of romance books. I've never read any of her books. I read Shield of Sparrows this year, and then recently read Indigo Ridge. Really love that one. We have Madeline Taylor and also Marina Lynn. I'm going to be talking about their books a little bit later in this tag, but I will read anything that they put out. They're indie authors. Then we have authors that didn't quite work out for me. That is definitely going to be Adrienne Young. I've read 3 of her books this year, and just none of them really worked. Like, her writing style is very atmospheric, but I can't ever get behind the plot lines. It feels like they're kind of convoluted. She's trying to do too much and then not accomplishing anything. I don't know, maybe I'm not reading the right books by her, but I've given her 3 chances so far, and it's just, yeah, not working out for me. So that's really disappointing because so many people love her. And then we also have Natasha Preston. To be fair, I've only read 1 of her books, but I feel like her writing is going to be way too YA for me. And like, this is definitely more of a me problem, I think, because I'm not the audience for her books anymore. It took me way too long to get into the books that I have by her. So yeah, probably more my fault than her fault, but that's another one that I thought of when I read this tag. Then we have the happiest book that I read this year, and this shouldn't come as a surprise. If It Makes You Happy, like I said, I was just smiling pretty much the entire time reading this. Yes, it has some heavier topics in here, but like as a whole, it just makes you feel so warm and fuzzy and giddy while you're reading it. So that one was hands down really easy to pick. Then we have most depressing or like saddest book that I read this year, and that's going to be Releasing 10. There's quite a few sad books that I've read this year. Alchemist could be in this list too, but I just feel like this one really hit harder because it's set in the real world, and these are real experiences that a lot of people can struggle with, and it just, that makes it hit so much harder. Lots of really heavy topics in here, important topics to talk about, but yeah, super sad to read about, especially because she hasn't found like her happy ever after yet. Then we have the most frustrating read. I don't own a physical copy of this yet. I will, because it's part of a series that I love, and I have to have all of them because that's just how my brain works. And that is Wildside by Elsie Silver. This was frustrating because I love all of her other books that I've read so far, and this one just was such a miss for me. I just didn't vibe with the characters, their romance, the side story going on with the main male character. I don't know, it cringed me out. I couldn't get into this one, so that one was definitely my most frustrating read of the year. Then we have most like beautiful covers for the books that I've read this year. The first has to be the Liza Lena series. This is actually the second one because I really like this one. But this is by an indie author. I think they are now getting traditionally picked up, but these indie covers were drawn by the author, which I think is incredible. Like, to have both of those skills is just mind-blowing to me, and they're stunning. They're beautiful. So that one definitely. And then for my probably my favorite fairy loot of the year, we have the Alchemized edition. It's just So pretty. The attention to detail, I don't know if you can see with the way that the camera picks it up, but like all of these are like alchemical signs and everything. In like the background, you have the stunning end pages. And then just that. It's so pretty. Like I can't get over that edition of that book. Then we get into the book that I couldn't stop thinking about, still can't stop thinking about, and that is definitely going to have to be Alchemized. I was wrecked by this book. So many people were wrecked by this book. It just has so many heavy, important topics to think about, and the writing in here is just really beautiful. The story and everything that this female character goes through is just beautiful and heartbreaking, and you just can't help but think about it even once you're done. Like I closed that book and like felt like I was closing a chapter of myself, which is probably pretty dramatic while you're talking about reading a book, but that's kind of what it felt like. Like I'd been in it for so long that closing it just felt very significant and heavy. Then we have a potentially unpopular book that I actually ended up loving, and that's going to be Cruel as the Light. I've just seen a decent amount of negative reviews about this, and I don't know if that's as a whole or if that's just the people that I follow that don't seem to like it, but it seems more unpopular than I expected. I really thought people would love this because to me this reads like a more adult version of kind of the Shadowhunters world, because it's this war against humanity and demons, and you have this religious element to it. There's differences from the Shadowhunters world, but a lot of it, like, it kind of gave that overall similarity with the plot lines and everything. I was obsessed when I read this. Like, I listened to the audiobook on a drive down to Florida to see my parents, and I could not stop listening to it. Like, normally I have to switch on and off because my brain's that way, but like, I loved this so much, and I can't wait for the next one, so I was really surprised that more people aren't hyping that one up. Then we have a book I thought I would love, but didn't, and there's a couple that I've already mentioned, like maybe the most disappointing read or the most surprising, stuff like that. Those could probably fit for this one, but in an attempt to not repeat myself too much, I'm going to pick Killer Potential. This is a book that I put on my list in the beginning of the year as like a new release that I thought I was really going to love, and then I read it and I was like, wow, none of this is very suspenseful. This is meant to be a suspense book about a young woman who is running away from the cops because they think that she killed her employers, and she didn't, and she also found this woman tied up in their house and she's on the run with her, and like, it should be really cool, but it wasn't, and it just felt like an extended road trip rather than any sort of like suspense plot. Like, she did nothing to help herself, and it was very frustrating to read. So yeah, that one was definitely one of my more disappointing reads of the year. Then we have a book with the most unique concept, and I'm going to pick Till Death for this one. This follows a death maiden in a world where there's supposed to be a life maiden and a death maiden, and the only way people die before they reach 200 years is if Death himself tells his maiden, hey, go kill that person. So she's indebted to him. She doesn't want to be anymore because she's tired of killing people. So she is out on this quest to find the life maiden, whom nobody has seen for a very long time. That alone is a really fun, unique premise, but then she also gets tied in marriage to this magical burlesque show, and she doesn't want to be because the owner of the burlesque show has been trying to tie her in a deal for a really long time. So you get that element in it too, like a magical burlesque show. I've never heard of that. So that setting and concept is really unique. I adored this book so much. I've already read it twice this year, so that says anything. This is also one of those authors that I said I would definitely read more of her stuff. She actually does have more than just this out now, but like when I first read this was her debut novel, and I think this was the only one that she had published. So yeah, I will read whatever she writes. Then we have a book I would reread. Asking me to narrow that down is just a crazy request. Like, any of the ones that I've talked about that I said I loved, I would absolutely reread. I would reread. God, there's just too many to narrow that down. The One Dark Window duology, I would definitely read again. Some of the Boys of Toman books I would read again. Listen, I can't narrow this down. I can't. Any of my favorites that I've read this year that were like 5 stars, I would absolutely pick up again in a heartbeat if I didn't have such a long TBR. Then we're just a little bit of a reading reflection on the year. My goal for the year was to read 180 books. I am currently sitting at 200 books read. Those do not include any of my DNFs, at all, or like any little novellas that I read that were less than 100 pages, because I just don't think those should count. So 200 books, which is absolutely crazy. I still have a few days left in 2025, and I'm still trying to trek along and get through my 25 and 2025 list. So I think I'm going to end up somewhere over 200, maybe like 203, 205, something like that, which is just mind-blowing. That is so many more than I read last year, and it's just crazy. But at the end of the day, reading is reading no matter how many books that you read. If you only read one, if you read two, if you read 200, whatever, like just picking up a book and reading is an accomplishment. And like, I don't share those numbers to brag or anything like that. Like I said, I think if you read it all, it's incredible and it's fantastic, and you should be proud of yourself. So yeah, anyway. So I do think I'm probably going to set my reading goal for 200 next year, because I like setting goals that I think I could maybe achieve and like work towards. It's fun, but if you don't, then that's okay too. It's just a number at the end of the day. Then we have books I wish I had gotten to this year. That list is rather extensive. Most of the books on that list are actually in my 26 and 2026 TBR, because I've been thinking about them a lot. There's a lot of indie series that I wish I'd been able to get to this year. City of Gods and Monsters. I think it's called The Night Prince. Everybody's raving about that. Really wish I could read that. Chelsea Curto books. I think those are like hockey romances. Everyone seems to love those. I wish I could have gotten into those a little bit this year. I like there's really a lot, but like those are the top three that kind of come to mind. And then sort of my priorities for 2026. I definitely really want to get through my priority TBR, focus on that a little bit more at the beginning of the year so that I can actually get through it and not have like this crazy manic run to see if I can in like the last month of the year. But aside from that, I would really love to finish series more. I know I said that in this year too, but like I really do want to prioritize that next year. I feel like sometimes it gets boring for my reading vlogs if I'm reading the same series, especially because I have a lot of longer series on my TBR, and I feel like it gets boring for you guys watching it. But I want to prioritize stuff that I'm also going to enjoy and not worry so much about followers. I mean, like, I want stuff that I don't know how to explain this. I want stuff that you enjoy, but I also want to be reading stuff that I enjoy. And that also means reading some of the books that are on my TBR that I've had for a really long time, that I have for a reason, because I think I'm going to enjoy them, but I know that they're not necessarily mainstream popular books anymore. So I'm like, is this going to be boring for people to watch? I really want to try to balance a little bit more with reading things that I really want to read along with stuff that I think my followers would enjoy. So I'm going to try to find a better balance with that next year and see if I can work my way through some of the series that I need to work my way through. So that is it for this end of year book tag. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for watching any video that you guys have watched for me this year. I had a goal to reach 500 subscribers by the end of the year, and I actually exceeded that a little bit, and it feels like it's been a long time since I've started this channel, but like looking back, it really hasn't been. And as just something that's like a hobby for me, that means a lot to me that I've been able to sort of build that following and interact with any people that consistently interact with me. Like, it means a lot to me, and I just really want to say thank you guys so much for that and for making 2025 a really good year for me. So I hope to see you guys in the new year with some of my new content, and I hope that you guys have had a great holiday season and will have a wonderful New Year's. Again, thank you so much. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.